All right, Nirav. Thank you again for making time for this interview, and also I know you had some really good question that you wanted to ask when it came to fundraising for restaurants. So I'd love for you to start off kind of number one, sharing a little bit about yourself,
Mhm.
your background, and then also the second thing is I'd love to find out, I guess your question. So I'll hand it to you if that's a cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Paul, for having me. Uh, I'm gonna share very briefly about my background. So I graduated college about 3, 4 years ago, and I'm from the tech world. So I do startups, tech, design. That's my kind of bread and butter. My family has always been in the franchising space. I guess the past 5, 6 years. My greater family even more than that. So I've always been exposed to it. So being, just watching them grow franchises, things like that. And last couple of years, I really decided to dive deep into franchising and help my dad retire because he was working, 60, 70 hours a week, and he's like 50 years old. So he cannot do that in the long term. So I decided, hey, I'm going to bring in managers and make the whole thing passive for our family. And I was helping him out since he started about 5 years ago, started that franchise, Tropical Smoothie Cafe.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, and we're in Knoxville, Tennessee. So we started that. He started that 5 years ago. I've been helping him out through college and even after it, but really dug deep in 2 years ago with it. So and really got passionate about about the concept itself, but in general about franchising and how it kind of impacts the local community. I don't know. I saw a stat while I was researching on Google that most of the wealth franchising creates stay in the local community, which really kind of empowers
Yeah.
me, like makes me keep going. And you know, uh, just more recently, I have you know, delved right into the impact and figured out a way to kind of make it available for other people. So that's my goal.
Got it.
Um, right. So I'm starting a platform, which aside from this pitch, I'm starting a platform that makes it easier for anyone to invest in franchises,
Oh, nice.
similar to franchise, which I'm sure you also know of. It's a little bit different. That's not the point of this video. I'm here to ask the question and learn more from you. But just based on that, I have a lot of experience in franchising and getting the right operators and making it passive.
Sure.
I'm looking for to get guidance from you regarding the investment aspect of it. How do you
Sure.
garner trust with them, and reduce uncertainty in that aspect? So I read about you on Wolf of Franchise, and then I listened to a couple of your podcasts, learned a lot, uh, and specifically wanted to ask, how did you, I saw that you raised like 5 million in 3, 4 months, which is amazing. So how did you like go about the process? How did you reach out to the investors? What was your method to the madness, really?
Got it. Got it. And no, thank you for sharing all of that. And it's funny, throughout my career, I'd say a big chunk of franchisees actually come from the tech space. I don't know what it is about you guys, but you guys end up, I love it because you approach, I'd say the restaurant industry tends to be very antiquated, not a lot of like tech innovations in the space. So the more tech forward thinking entrepreneurs that enter the space, I think the better. There was a time where the only innovation was, wow, we can take orders from an iPad.
Right, right.
So no, I love you guys entering the space. It definitely adds levels us up. And also, is it, you said your family was in the franchise world, and you mentioned Tropical Smoothie.
Mhm.
Are there other franchises that your family has been exposed that you've been exposed to?
Yeah, in my greater family, I've been exposed to Dunkin' Donuts, and Subways.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would actually love to hear more about your platform too, because thank you for like not wanting to like pitch it, but to be honest, if it really helps people, I want to hear about it, and it could probably help a ton more people too. So let's chat about that eventually. But as
Yeah.
far as your question about fundraising, one final question before I answer. In the message that you asked me, you wanted to fundraise for 6 stores specifically. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there a reasoning behind 6 stores? And I'd love you to walk me through why six, because that was an interesting number.
Yeah, absolutely. So six specifically because to get so I already have one, as part of the family. I got experience in one.
Mhm.
And I want to get experience in six, in either sets of two or sets of three,
Okay.
to understand how local economies of scale happen with one concept.
Got it.
To kind of understand that, capitalize on it. That was one reason. And the second is I want to prove to investors and any kind of future investors that, hey, I can be or my company, Franco is the name, can be a good operator and can actually provide the returns that we promise or that we think we accept, that we expect,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I really want to create a way to increase trust, because right now I'm just running a pilot program, starting small with it.
Got it. Got it. So, uh, and this is a brand new concept that you're trying to do, right?
Uh,
Or this
with
is just
the
expanding tropical.
Yeah, so I'm planning on doing 4 tropical smoothies
Okay.
and 2 other concepts.
Got it. So,
Yeah,
and you're trying to probably raise money for like the restaurant hospitality group to do multiple concepts, right?
correct.
Got it. Got it. So, um, yeah, I guess I would approach it a few ways. I think that one of the I always like to lean on unfair advantage or brand
Hmm.
awareness or team. So if Tropical Smoothie is already like a well-known brand, I think you'd want to lean into that, because when I raised 5 million for in that short amount of time,
Hmm.
I actually totally took advantage of the Halal Guys name. Like the Halal Guys is just so well known. It's such a viral cult following.
Hmm.
Because our team was probably less experienced, or we don't have, even though our team is experienced, we just don't have the same power as if we were to lean on the Halal Guys. So
Right.
in your case is interesting because you already have experience running Tropical Smoothie. You know the operation deep and in and out, and the brand is well known, and also like are in countless rapid growth award lists. So I would lead in with that, with both of those
Hmm.
things, and just say that, hey, we're looking, rather than open more stores ourselves, we'd love to invite friends and family and invite people who are interested in continued growth. And the way, I mean, I'll just kind of share with you how I raised the funds.
Yeah.
We pretty much raised 5 million, and it broke down as follows. We wanted to raise 5 million to build 10 stores. Each store
Hmm.
costed we expected it to be about 500,000 to build a store. In retrospect,
Yeah.
I wish we raised more, because building stores here in California, not as cost friendly as I thought.
Yeah.
So my advice to you is raise a little bit more than you think you need,
Hmm.
because you would look very incompetent if you ran out of money, then you have to come back to them, ask for more money. It's harder to do it that way. I'd rather you
Yeah.
over raise and then return investor funds back, and that makes them happier than having to go the other way around. But the way we did it was, we gave all of our investors, number one, we actually had to own majority of the company. So the way we did
Got
was,
it.
we said we need to own 60%, and we give the investors 40% of the company. But if you do that kind of math, it's probably going to take many years for investors to get back their money. So what we did
Hmm.
was, in order to take care of our investors, is pretty much how I pitched it. We are giving our investors a preferred accelerated return. Means,
Right.
in our case, we gave them 80% of the profits, 80% until they made 100% of their money back. And what happens is that our incentives are aligned, because the investors get their money quickly. They know that, gosh, the operator is only getting 20%, and I'm getting the lion's share. That's fair enough. And
Hmm.
we're so, that will force us to focus on making the store so profitable that they get their money back ASAP so that we can get our 60% as soon as possible, is the incentive. And then
Right.
we also charge the management fee as well, because it's kind of like hedge fund, like, for active management of the fund, we charge a management fee, and kind of like real estate property management, right? You just charge money to actively manage money for the investors. And that worked out really well. A majority of our stores have already returned 100% of the investor money, and they're just chilling
Awesome.
on, yeah, they're chilling on hopefully profits for the life of the business, which is really nice. And yeah, so it's a combination of just using the brand name, and the fact, I love the fact that you wanted to do 6 stores, because that helped these investors see that there's a much bigger picture here. And true wealth is built in multi-unit management. You're not going to make
Right.
a ton of money off of one store. So that's how you kind of want to approach it. And you'd also want to give them an incentive where if you do invest, then you'll be the first to be asked for all future investments.
Yeah.
So investors like to know that they get in first. They kind of like that VIP type of approach as well. And so I feel like the management fee is helps pay for your immediate needs on a regular basis, and it keeps you motivated to run stores at a high level. But then the accelerated payback tends to take care of investors. So I feel like there's a lot of other ways that it's been done, but I've done
Right.
this multiple times for not just the Halal Guys, for other restaurant deals that I've put together too. In addition to like the Halal Guys, I've also raised like a 20 million for other restaurants too. Most of it has been structured that same way. It seems to be fair, to be fair from an investor perspective. So hope that
Got it.
helps.
Yeah, no, definitely. Uh, I am curious about kind of the lead generation aspect of it, right? Like, what kind of communities and groups did you tap in? What was the investor archetype that really bought into this kind of deals with the
Yeah,
restaurant
good
franchise?
question. I'd say, so for the Halal Guys, again, I feel like it's an anomaly. It's kind of unfair because Halal Guys is just so well known. I think that for the other concepts that I've raised money for where the name wasn't as well known, we actually just cast a pretty wide net. So there's been a couple restaurants that wanted to raise money. And what we did was we just used social media to pretty much post, hey, thank you so much for being, our biggest fans and our customers. We want to expand, and we are looking for people who might be interested in investing. Email us and to learn more information. And your biggest fans tend to respond back, and they want to be involved. And we typically give them like some kind of VIP thing where they always get front of the line or always get free food in exchange. Because now you have just like a legion of cheerleaders that want your store to succeed. So that's been really helpful. Also, because of POS systems like Toast and all that, they keep track of customer data. We've actually used that to not only send out promotions, but we've sent out notices there too. I always like to believe that your biggest
Wow.
investors are usually your biggest fans. And then if you are in the tropical smoothie system, I mean, if you are open to the idea, you can also reach out to tropical smoothie franchisees who are probably operate in territories where it's already sold out and they can't do anymore.
Right.
Most of the time they may want to deploy money elsewhere, and that's another great way. I feel like if they already know you guys and trust you guys, and you're in a territory where there's a lot more room to grow, I'm sure they wouldn't mind investing as well, if you put together pretty attractive terms.
Right.
Yeah, and friends and family, I mean, can't hurt either, because they trust you guys, and that always helps. Sometimes a little is awkward. Some people have a philosophy about like, I don't want to get too close to friends and family and doing business with friends
Yeah.
and family. So I understand if it's not something you want to touch, but I feel like there's other avenues to grow without having to touch that aspect.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So in your outreach, was the majority of the investors, was it inbound or outbound, would you say, in
Uh,
terms of like the reaching out mechanism?
it was a lot of outreach. I think
Got it.
it's interesting. In my years of franchising, I've learned that so many people want to be franchisees and so many people want to invest in things. They just didn't know that they could. And so
Mm.
when I'll admit, more often than not, a lot of people respond back like, "Holy cow, I didn't know I could invest in this," or "I didn't know that you guys are a franchise," and usually that kind of delights people and wants people to learn more.
Right.
And I'd say lately there's been a lot more investment interest because I think because cryptocurrency has really like damaged people's money making abilities in crypto right now. So I feel like a
Hmm.
lot of money has actually flowed back into traditional stuff like real estate and restaurants. Last year during the bull run, it was a little bit harder to fundraise. I found myself getting rejected a lot because people was like, I can make more money trading these altcoins and cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
But now a lot of money has returned, which is great. So it's also good timing too, I think.
makes sense. Um, any thoughts on the investor archetypes? Like, do you see specific types of investors attracted to restaurants and specific types definitely not?
Um, I see a lot of corporate executives
Hmm.
like to invest. People in the corporate because they have a lot of money. They just don't have a lot of time. I think a lot of them have the itch to open restaurants. I think most people have the itch to open a restaurant. So if
Hmm.
you give them an opportunity to do that, they tend to be the most discretionary income folks, and they tend to leave you alone as like they're truly minority silent investors that don't have
Got it.
a large megaphone
Hmm.
because they're just too busy, or they know that they don't know about the business. As long as you're communicating regularly, like maybe a monthly report of some sort, kind of keeps
Hmm.
investors at bay. Like, so for the halal guys, we raised 5 million. We probably have like 60 investors, and
Wow.
we managed expectations early on. We just said, hey, remember, this is a truly passive investment. You need to also trust that the operating team knows what they're doing, and just hang tight for the monthly report, for the regular reports.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they've actually left us alone, and they've gotten their distributions. And so as long as you keep your promises and communicate with them regularly, they tend to leave you alone, which is great.
Hmm.
I hear a lot of people
That
complaining about investors complaining all the time. Like, well, do you talk to them regularly? It's like, no. Then you're kind of asking for it. So you also want to have a system in place for that too.
right, right.
Yeah.
Was there a system in place to kind of manage emotions when there were down periods in your monthly reporting, sales or profitability?
Yeah. Two things. The first one is if you if you put systems in place right away about transparent numbers and all that, and you know that
Hmm.
you're always going to get audited, it makes the tough conversations a lot easier, because when you're able to show them whenever they're angry, they're like, there's no dispute, right? And I think people have you heard of Chris Voss?
No, I have not.
So Chris Voss is like a really famous hostage negotiator, and he helped people get out of like, people, terrorists
Right.
kidnapping people. And one thing he taught, like he's like a big deal in the business personal development space, because one thing he taught was um, when you say you're going to call like
Hmm.
the terrorists or whatever, you always need to keep your promises. And so
Right.
what that means is, even if you have bad news or if you have no news to share, you still reach out to them as promised and still communicate anyway. Like, so if people always can, they care more that they can rely on you, and they can trust that you'll communicate with them. If there's no communication, that's when people's imaginations go wild, and it's never positive, right? But if you get a
Right.
regular newsletter and it's always saying, hey, not much to share here, but I just want to let you know that I'm here in case you had any questions, they usually just leave you alone, and they usually let you do your thing because they trust that you're going to communicate with them. So um, I've learned that, and it's worked out really well. Yeah,
Yeah.
even during bad news is better than no news, always.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think it also is. I've heard it being true even in my family and relatives space. They've invested in real estate dealings with real estate groups, and they stop communicating. They're not transparent about accounting. All the numbers, and get really frustrated. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah, it saves you, man. It'll save you from having to answer 20 emails asking where's the money or how's the performance. You just need to do it once a week, once a month, and
Hmm.
and you're much, and that helps with your operations as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say as far as archetypes, they tend to, corporate executives tend to do really well. And then, yeah, I'd say probably that's the best way to go. Majority of
Got
my
it.
investors are corporate guys.
Interesting.
Yeah. That they have money, but they shouldn't be anywhere near a restaurant. They should not be operating restaurants.
Now, do you think it's like partly geographical? Seeing that it was in California, and there's a lot of lot of tech executives or other corporate executives that are or already there want to see halal guys come over there. Do you think that makes an impact?
I think that does. I think when people feel like they have some level of proximity or control, and the
Hmm.
fact that they could just like, I mean, if you give them perks like giving them some kind of VIP thing where they get smoothies for life, like I'm pretty sure it would make more impact if they were nearby. And if
Hmm.
they can bring their friends over all the time, because I don't know, there's something magical about being able to take your friends to a place where you're a shareholder, kind of like rubs their ego a
Yeah.
bit. I will say though that there is an investor that I fundraised where they lived in another country, and they were just looking for opportunities in the States. So they were trying to have a way to invest in the States. So I wouldn't discount international investors either if you have connections out
Hmm.
there. So, but I've been flown out to fundraise for deals in like Australia and Vietnam. So it's
Wow.
possible. It's possible. So I don't know what your network is out there, but I think the allure of investing in an American business where it's maybe a little more stable, it could be a good way to go to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely. What would you say are the biggest mistakes that you see in pitches, investor pitches?
uh, yeah, good question. Yeah, I'd say when you fundraise too little, I think going back to what I said earlier, you just look a lot more prepared, a lot more smarter if you are able to raise. So whatever you think you need. I mean, your family's operated stores before. I'm wondering, you
Yeah.
probably spent more. Most of the time, stores cost more and take longer to build than you think.
Oh yeah.
And so if you're anticipating that, um, yeah, just fundraise. I mean, add a cushion of like maybe 20% to it,
Hmm.
and just tell investors. It's actually much better to tell investors that we're actually raising for a little bit more than we need, because it's a cushion for our emergencies. It's a cushion for marketing opportunities, and if there is money left over, we want to return it to you right away, because that way we get our accelerated payback sooner. So it's a much better conversation to have. Um, uh, Another thing is, when it comes to pitching, um, I'd say that I'd say that pitches that don't have, I'd say pitches. I mean, if you're able to, when in the beginning, when you're trying to raise money, it's less. Actually, you come from the tech space, so you'll probably agree with me. In the tech space, uh, the product and the company don't matter as much as the leadership team. Like,
Right.
leadership companies,
Absolutely.
yeah, products and companies always need to be iterated anyway, and a lot of times they pivot anyway. So
Hmm.
you want stronger leadership that will outlast, you know changing preferences and training trends. But so I saw some pitch decks where when they put the team near the beginning versus the end,
Hmm.
that actually is a lot more credibility building than the end. Some people focus and they lead way too soon, too much on product. And it's cool for you because Tropical Smoothie is already a well-known brand. You can stop.
Yeah.
You can stop beating that horse. You can just talk about how like you come from deep experience. You've been operating since you were a child. You have a network of support, and you have a plan in
Yeah.
place to return investment. And then, oh, by the way, it's Tropical Smoothie. Like, oh wow, like it's like if you feel like you're just adding like the cherry on top versus going too
Got
strong
it.
on that. So I actually love pitches where the leadership team is talked about more.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So um yeah, and I'd say also pitches are I like pitches that are a little more interactive as well. Whereas some people are just pitching and they're talking for like an hour straight, and
Mhm.
they don't really make sure the investor is following them or read the signs and read the room to know
Right.
what they're more interested in than not. So I typically like pitches where I'm just like, hey, I mean, after I go through a slide or two, I usually just say, hey, like, is this interesting to you, or what are you more focused on? And it shows that that I'm really aware and I'm observing the investor and making sure the investor is taken care of. Sometimes I put together this pitch, but I'm more interested in making sure your questions are answered because every investor is so different. And usually they
Absolutely.
appreciate that. And we end up having a conversation for like an hour, and we didn't go through the pitch at all. Usually I just say, oh, I'll send you the pitch later.
Well,
And it ended up working well too. So I think a lot of people also overly depend on the pitch deck too. A lot of times, again, it's the leadership team and it's the relationship. Like people invest because they trust you. So yeah, I hope that helps too.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Have you seen a difference between like fully digital pitches versus in, via Zoom or in person that you could
Ooh,
highlight?
good question. My pitches have all been either through email, and then I end up meeting them in person. I actually
Mhm.
haven't had the privilege of doing too many Zoom pitches yet. So yeah,
I wouldn't say it's a privilege.
well, yeah, there's just so many cues and so many things, signals that are missing. So if you're able to pull it off, great. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's just something personal about people with a lot. Like you're asking for a lot of money. I guess you just tried and I probably had an opportunity to pitch to my groups in Vietnam and Australia and the Middle East as
Mhm.
well, like by Zoom. But there's something more magical than just flying out there. And I feel like there's a sunk cost too, right?
Right.
Like, wow, Paul flew all the way here. That means a lot, and people care more about the relationship than the deal terms. And so they're just like, I feel like I'm guilting them into investing for in a good way, of course, but
Right.
because I've invested in you, it's more it's more likely that they're willing to reciprocate, I guess, is the thought process.
Yeah, definitely makes sense.
Yeah. And yeah, I'd probably say that, yeah, we could probably do Zoom, but because you're investing so much money, I actually want to come to you and talk to you about it. And maybe they'll appreciate that too, but that's just an idea I made up.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love traveling too, so an opportunity for me to go out and about.
And you also don't want to waste your time either. So you're just like, hey, like, do you like the general terms and all that? Like, I'm willing to fly out,
Mhm.
but I just want to make sure it's are you willing to do something soon, and are you pretty serious about it? If so, I'm happy to hop on a plane. And that way you kind of qualify it before you waste your time too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I got lucky because my trip to Vietnam and Australia were paid for by the investor. So
Wow.
I got a lot I got it a lot because there's a lot of I think I think overseas there's so many economic uncertainty there. And I think
Right.
the ability to invest in a US business is kind of like sexy and also feels stable. Yeah, a lot of folks are willing to look out there. So if you have international connections, I just say, hey, like, is there anyone interested in investing in US businesses?
Mhm.
They can just do it for that, or a lot of people do the whole immigration thing where they're looking for a way to invest as well. One of my halal guy stores is actually, do you know the EB5 program?
No, I don't.
So there are some countries that are friendly relations with the US where there's a lot of like wealthy people overseas that would love to get citizenship in the States. And one of the ways to do that is to invest in a business. So if you're willing to contribute to the US economy, then they'll
Wow.
give you an opportunity to get a green card here. And they usually come from countries where the economy is unstable, or there's not a lot of like opportunities, or they sometimes want to send their kids to college.
Mhm.
So you might want to explore that as well. It's not as easy as I wish, but that's also another opportunity too.
Yeah. It's very, very good to know.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah, hopefully that was all helpful.
Super helpful. I have other questions, but I will pause and wait. If you have any other questions, we can dive deep into that too.
No, feel free to ask those questions. You got me here now, and yeah, hopefully, as long as you feel like it's helpful, I'm happy to address more questions.
Oh no, super helpful.
There's so much to go in that goes into it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Uh, Wanted to go a little bit deeper into choosing your operators. I heard a little bit about it in the podcast for Franchise Secrets.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to just go deeper into it. Your tips on choosing store operators, like
Yes.
specifically the GMs,
Yes.
because I have a thesis on how to go about it and have implemented part of it, but just interested in that aspect of it.
Sure. Actually, do you mind if I flip it back on you, and like I'm kind of curious to know your thesis behind it, because I could learn as well. It's still people are still tricky to figure out, so I love to hear about your thesis as well.
So my thesis. So I'll talk to you about the experience with my dad's store,
Mhm.
the Tropical Smoothie Cafe. So how I kind of went about it is, I provided we provided compensation to the general managers, that was average to the local area.
Okay.
On top of that, we provided profit sharing, based on them hitting specific metrics on a yearly basis. Well, actually, on a quarterly basis. So every quarter, we would do distributions, to us, the owners, and also to the managers, the general managers. So that was one thing, and really, second thing was having a structure, where the KPIs. I come from the tech world, so I talk with all the data, right?
No, we need
Make all the expectations through there.
most mom and pop shops don't do KPIs, and that's why they either struggle all the time or they fail. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, KPIs are necessary. So I'm glad that's why I love that you're coming from that background. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, we have 3 or 4 KPIs that we think are very important, so we
Mhm.
focus on those. And every month, we will choose one KPI and try to increase that. And we have a conversation with the general. It's mainly me, but I'll have a conversation with the general manager, who is actually my high school friend. So it's much easier.
Nice, yeah.
That hey, we did XYZ this month. It led to this much growth, or it did not lead to growth, in this KPI, or it actually decreased this KPI, in the other way. And then we brainstorm directions and then try something else the month after. And that's been working pretty well for us
That's
recently.
good. That's good. That's awesome. Um, I love that strategy quite a bit. I think I mean, just actually adding more to that than actually giving a fresh perspective. I mean, this is all
Hmm.
assuming that the general manager feels loved and the culture is great and
Yep.
it's a good fit, of course. But yeah, for us, we actually used a hospitality recruiting firm to get our first few general managers. So we used a company called Gecko Hospitality, like gecko, like the
Got it.
lizard,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we were willing to overpay for our manager, which you've heard from the podcast,
Yep.
because we wanted to attract, number one, somebody who's a higher performance person, someone who had experience managing multiple stores, which this person did. And we also, this actually person came from Jamba Juice. They actually managed like 10 Jamba
Look at
Juices.
that.
Yeah. So that's kind of right down your alley. But yeah, and we also created all these metrics too. So a lot of it had to do with top line sales, driving top line sales,
Hmm.
and just they get motivated based on what we want them to focus on. So yes, keeping food costs and labor costs in mind, they get a quarterly bonus. If they're able
Hmm.
to help maintain like Yelp reviews, create such an incredible experience that Yelp reviews are increasing, because as you know, people make decisions based on that. Love
Yep.
it or hate it, we give them a bonus based on that. And so we created all these bonuses to where the general manager actually could make close to like 6 figures if they did it right. Now, keep in mind, I'm a fast casual like restaurant. I mean, I don't know, Tropical Smoothie probably has a different pay structure, and also because you're in Tennessee versus California. Those are
Right.
different, but I think as long as the metrics are clear and unbiased, and it's more like general managers underperform or they leave their jobs when the metrics aren't clear or they feel like it's actually unattainable. So why bother?
Hmm.
So yeah, and you also, I think people also stay when they know that there's a long-term benefit too. So if they know that they are going to not just manage one store, but they also could be a multi-level manager,
I
multi-unit
see.
manager, or if they feel like they can become a trainer, to open new stores, like there's just more opportunity. People are willing to stay because they know that there's more opportunity. There's like an upward career trajectory is the goal.
Right.
Yeah. So hope that helps.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of the KPIs, um, how do they change, the first year of launch versus year 2 and 3 of launch
Yeah. Um,
for you?
for us, I think in the beginning, there's a lot of grace needed for a couple metrics that shouldn't be focused on. Like, for
Hmm.
example, not that it matters, not that it doesn't matter, but in the beginning, you don't focus too much on labor costs yet, because
Hmm.
you do want to, I'd rather you overstaff and create an incredible experience for customers,
Yeah.
than be too anal about it and cutting labor and compromising the experience. So maybe for the next quarter, for the first quarter or two, we are um, less difficult on labor. Food
Hmm.
costs is a little bit more like lenient as well. But because we want them to focus on incredible experience and maybe catering opportunities, you probably give them more bonuses based on those things that you want to focus on.
Got it.
And you can give them an extra bonus based on like managing labor and managing other things early on, but that's not important yet.
Right.
Second year, yeah, you better have all that stuff together. And that's something that you and the general manager. Another thing is to work with the general manager on actually creating the metrics together. Because if they feel like they're also creating it with you, they feel like they help construct it. They're more committed to it too.
Absolutely.
Like they bought in, like it's their idea.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And
Uh, I
I also think sharing their profit, it's this is a personal decision, but if you are open to sharing like the full P&L to the general manager, they also
Mhm.
start feeling like they are part of the company and they're a partner as well. And if there's clarity, they'll know like, dude, I need to work harder on this because I get a profit share too. And I
Yeah.
know that, Nirav needs to also have profitability to open more stores to give me more opportunities to excel. And it's just easier for you as well, not having to hide shit all the time. Sorry,
Oh yeah.
hide stuff all the time. So it
Definitely.
all works. It works out in your favor too.
Yeah, that's how we kind of go about it. Because it is a profit sharing structure, it doesn't make sense in my mind to kind of hide that, because then you know, there's uh, asymmetry of information
For
in
sure.
something that's like their compensation. So it doesn't, it's gonna lead to distrust in the future, things like that. So I'm like super anal about being transparent about that, even over transparent.
Yeah, I think it's a really weird culture where people hide it and then they expect these store managers to treat it like their own business. Like
Yeah.
so it doesn't match up with the expectations. But if the store
Right.
manager feels like they are part of the company, they run it like their own business, and you're giving them the skills to actually own their own store, that experience is so valuable. I mean, they may end up leaving you and opening their own store, but the fact is you've created a culture where you built incredible leaders, which is also kind of a reward in itself. And the hope is maybe they can train the next person willing to run the store just as well, if not better. So I just maybe I'm overly idealistic, but it's worked out pretty well, and it just makes
Hmm.
total sense. And it's less work for you guys if it's all transparent. Everyone knows what to expect and stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've seen like back in the day when I was observing family and friends run Subways, tropical, Dunkin' Donuts, and even my dad running Tropical Smoothie. There's been a huge shift in the culture in the restaurant industry in general, especially fast casual, of even more in empowerment of the leadership rather than kind of demanding things to happen.
Yeah.
And I've seen it work out really well. So that's what I'm trying to learn from and make happen.
Well, and you also know, like you as an operator and myself as well, like it's harder to find good workers, and people also make more money driving Uber with less stress, and they also make more money recording TikTok videos. And
Yeah.
so it's not like I've learned that people are not, it's not that our new generation is lazier, they just have better opportunities than we do. And so you can either fight it and continue complaining about the generation and also treating the generation like crap, or you can be aware that they have options and you want to give them an experience where they're actually learning things and learning how to be business people and learning how to be operators and feel appreciated. And instead of making TikTok videos for yourself, why don't you maybe consider doing TikTok stuff for us and
for the business?
Yeah. So embrace it instead of criticize it. I is what I'm learning and what I'm trying to learn too. So
no, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Whenever I find myself complaining about it, I realize I'm just hating on them because I wish I could create videos and make $1 million. Right. So I need to embrace it. So that's something we're working on.
Yeah. I wish I could do that too. But we're here.
It's okay. Tropical Smoothie we can also create cool content for that too. So
yeah.
Any other questions at all? I mean, this is a cool conversation. Hopefully it's helpful for you as it is for me.
It is super helpful for me. And I hope it is for you too. I think one of my last questions, if others don't pop up later, is that, I've been following you for like less than a month, but I've seen you do a lot of different things. You operate the Halal Guys, you have like a newsletter on NFTs, and you got into a new position at Roland Taquitos, which is awesome. How do you kind of manage all of that? Like, do you have a personal philosophy with that?
Yeah. It's funny that you noticed that and are calling me out on that. I could probably take better care of my health and about it, because obviously something's being compromised here, like usually my sleep. But I guess for me, I think there's a lot of personal development people are just raving about. You need to focus, you only do one thing. And I understand what they're trying to say, because you want to go focus and you want to go deep into things, because being deep in the trenches is where most people are unwilling to go. And that's where all the insights and breakthroughs happen. However, I'm also being aware of myself. I get excitement and passion over doing many different things and finding relationships between the two. And I'd like to use the example of like how like Netflix and the library membership card system kind of merged together because someone saw the pattern between both. And I like to think that a lot of my insights and a lot of the wealth creating characteristics of mine are because I do a bunch of things and I see patterns and I see opportunities and gaps and I merge them together. So whether or not I'm being delusional and tricking myself about this it remains to be seen, but I find myself enjoying doing a bunch of things and merging them together somehow. And the second thing is, the reason why I'm able to do that stuff is because a couple of things. First one is going back to that Franchise Secrets podcast, I overpaid for incredible management to where we created incentives that were aligned to where she runs the business like almost entirely, so that I can be free to do other things as well. And that's what happens when you just hire incredible people to run stores and give them a lot of empowerment, and the incentives are aligned. So even though me running the Halal Guy sounds like a big task, I just have, number one, a really good team. And then number two, I actually co-own the stores. I have equal partners that also are a little more active than I am too. So again, this is also a philosophy of like, I can either run this on my own and own 100%, and I can be tied to it forever and I can't do anything else, or I can share the wealth with my general manager and a few partners. We can divide and conquer, and I'd rather have a smaller percentage of like a $15 million company than own all of it and just have a
Yep.
shitty mental health and all the other things that I don't get to do and probably regret not doing, if that makes sense.
Oh no,
Um,
definitely. I'm kind of the same way in that I have, multiple things going on in my
yeah.
life, and my friends call me out on it all the time. So it's just interesting to hear it from, someone who is in a similar position and try to figure out how to kind of balance it and not just run around.
Yeah, it's a work in progress for me. It's not perfect. I do find myself getting into things where I was excited early on and I just lost interest. But I
Mhm.
think it's the exploratory process where I would regret it if I didn't at least tinker with it and see whether I even wanted it or not. And so it's been more helpful than hurtful. But then again, it's because I have good partners and good team members that I can tinker with all these other things too. And
Right.
so, and of course, NFTs are just a big obsession right now. And I love the technology behind it. I know it's just silly JPEGs to a lot of people, but you and I probably you, because you are in the tech space, you know that it's a lot more useful and critical than a lot of people think it is. And
Yeah.
so, but until then, I'm just having fun with the monkey JPEGs.
Right.
So
We all need fun in our lives, so why
yeah,
not?
this is my thing. This is my thing. But yeah, that's hopefully that sheds some more light on it.
Definitely.
And writing, and again, this is why you and I are doing content creation as well. I, I I've learned that I'm an introvert. I don't like I can't I can't talk to 100 people without being super drained, whereas other people they can and they get life out of it. So actually, the selfish reason for content creation is I hope to create something really helpful where I can just do
Hmm.
it once and now I can just share it with other people instead of saying the same thing over and over and over again. And it's a great way to scale anyway. So that's the reason
Right.
for content creation selfishly. But the generous part is just I know that there's a lot of cool experiences that I go through that I think would help others if they knew about it. And so,
I totally agree.
yeah, so that's the reason for being.
I'm glad you're doing it, and I hope I asked all the try to get deeper into it. And I'm sure some more will come to mind later.
Oh, yeah, feel free to shoot questions my way. And, if anything, maybe I'll ask for your contact info too, because I don't know, it's just some crazy chance that someone's interested and they saw this and they're interested in investing with your organization. I think it'd be kind of cool. And you can tell me that I helped with that. So just, I'll put that in the show notes and,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, man. I hope this is all helpful and, anything else at all?
No, that's all that I had.
Cool, man. Well, good luck to your ventures. And if you want me to take a look at like the pitch deck or the approach or anything at all, just let me know and happy to help if I can. Okay, man.
Definitely. I will send over the website and the pitch deck and my contact information.
That sounds good, Nirav. Good luck to everything and have a good rest of the weekend. Okay, man.
Thank you, Paul.
All
You have
right.
a great one too.
You too, man. Bye.
Bye.